CB crackled to life at 5:47 a.m., some trucker's voice cutting through the static. Breaker 19. Anybody got eyes on what's happening up ahead? I'm seeing smoke, maybe 3 miles north of exit 133. I'd been hauling freight for 22 years, but I'd never seen I-95 look like this. Stretched out in front of me for what had to be 5 miles was the mother of all traffic jams. Cars, trucks, RVs, motorcycles, all packed tighter than sardines in a tin. The evacuation out of the Carolinas had been going for 6 hours now, ever since whatever happened down in Charleston. Government said chemical leak. Hell, they always said chemical leak. My rig, a 2018 Peterbilt 579 with a sleeper cab that Sarah had helped me pick out the colors for, was stopped dead between mile markers 134 and 135. Engine idling, AC running, fuel gauge showing 3/4 full. Could be worse. At least I wasn't one of those poor bastards in the compact cars with no room to stretch their legs. Dad, are you still behind us? Sarah's voice came through the CB. She was riding with the Hendersons, our neighbors from Norfolk, about 2 miles ahead in their Suburban. Evacuation convoy rules. Families with kids got priority lanes. Made sense, I guess, even if it meant I couldn't keep my eyes on her. Still here, kiddo. Just enjoying the scenic view of 1,000 tail lights. I adjusted the CB handset, staring at the sea of red brake lights stretching into the early morning haze. You doing okay up there? Mr. Henderson says we might be here for a while. Something about a big accident up front. That's when I saw it. Thick black smoke billowing up from somewhere north, maybe 3 miles ahead. Not regular car fire smoke either. This was the kind of industrial-strength black cloud you get from a jackknifed tanker, the kind that makes experienced drivers nervous. Sarah, honey, you stay put with the Hendersons, okay? Don't get out of their truck for anything. I know, Dad. You told me like 50 times. Smart mouth, just like her mother. Amanda would have made the same crack. God rest her soul. 5 years gone from cancer, and I still caught myself buying her favorite coffee creamer at truck stops. The CB squawked again. All units. All units. This is Virginia State Police on Emergency Channel. Interstate 95 northbound is experiencing multiple vehicle incidents. Remain in your vehicles until further notice. Repeat. Remain in your vehicles. Multiple incidents. That was cop speak for, we have no idea what the hell is going on. I'd heard that tone before during the big pileup outside Richmond in '09, when black ice turned the interstate into a bowling alley for 18-wheelers. I climbed out of the cab to get a better look, ignoring the state cop's advice. Old habits. When you've been driving truck for 2 decades, you learn to trust your eyes over someone else's radio chatter. The morning air smelled wrong. Not just exhaust and hot asphalt, but something else. Something sharp and chemical that made my sinuses burn. Hey, trucker. Some guy in a Honda Civic was waving at me from 2 lanes over. Middle-aged, wearing a wrinkled polo shirt, probably an office worker from Virginia Beach fleeing whatever was happening down south. You got a CB in that thing? What's the word on when we're moving? State police say stay in your vehicles. I called back. Accidents up front. Accidents, plural? He looked nervous, kept glancing toward his back seat where I could see a car seat. Jesus, we've been sitting here for 3 hours. My kid needs to use the bathroom. I didn't have the heart to tell him it was probably going to be a lot longer than 3 hours. That black smoke wasn't getting any smaller, and the morning sun was showing me details I didn't like. Twisted metal, overturned vehicles, and something else moving around in the smoke. There's a pilot truck stop about 10 miles back, I said, but we ain't going anywhere soon. The Honda guy slammed his palm against his steering wheel. This is insane. They can't just leave us sitting here. But that's exactly what they were doing. And after another hour of watching that smoke column grow thicker, I was starting to think there might be a reason for it. My CB had been picking up chatter from other drivers, fragments of conversation that didn't make much sense. Something wrong with the people from the wreckage. Saw Jenkins get out to help, and then he just started. Don't let them near your truck. Government boys setting up roadblocks behind us. That last part got my attention. I climbed up on my running board and looked back south. Sure enough, maybe 2 miles behind our position, I could see military vehicles stretched across all lanes. Humvees, a couple of those MRAP armored trucks, and soldiers setting up what looked like a checkpoint. We weren't in a traffic jam. We were in a trap. I keyed the CB. Sarah, you still there? Yeah, Dad. Mr. Henderson says they're bringing us bottled water soon. Some kind of emergency relief thing. That's good, honey. You stay close to the Hendersons, okay? And if anyone tries to get you out of that truck, you tell them no. You understand. Dad, you're scaring me. Just being careful, kiddo. I love you. Love you too. I looked north toward the smoke, then south toward the roadblock, then at the 1,000 vehicles trapped between them. Whatever was happening up in that wreckage, the government wanted to make sure it didn't spread, which meant they were willing to sacrifice all of us sitting here on the asphalt to contain it. The CB crackled. Emergency alert system activation. All residents of Interstate 95 corridor from mile marker 125 to mile marker 140 are under mandatory quarantine. Do not attempt to leave your vehicles. Military personnel are authorized to use force to maintain quarantine perimeter. This message will repeat. Use force. That was military speak for "we'll shoot you if you try to run." I was trapped on I-95 with my 18-year-old daughter 2 miles ahead of me. Something wrong happening in the wreckage up front, soldiers blocking our escape route, and no idea what the hell we were really running from. But I had a 40-ton rig, 3/4 of a tank of diesel, and 22 years of experience dealing with situations where the only way out was through. Time to earn my keep. By noon, the CB traffic had changed from trucker chatter to something that made my skin crawl. Voices I didn't recognize, speaking in flat tones that sounded wrong, like people reading from scripts they didn't understand. This is vehicle registration Delta 74. Everything is normal here. We are complying with quarantine procedures. Vehicle Bravo 21 reporting no incidents. All passengers accounted for and healthy. Tango 59 confirms situation stable. No assistance required. Nobody talked like that on the CB. Real truckers complained about everything: the weather, the DOT, their dispatchers, their wives, their ex-wives, the price of diesel, the food at truck stops, their lower back pain. They sure as hell didn't give military-style status reports using vehicle registration codes. I tried reaching Sarah again. Little bird, this is big truck. You copy? Static. Sarah, if you can hear this, key the mic twice. Nothing. I'd been watching the area ahead through my binoculars, a pair of Bushnell 10X42s I kept for spotting speed traps and checking load securement. What I saw made me wish I'd kept the receipt so I could return them and pretend I'd never looked. The smoke from the wreckage had thinned enough to show me the accident scene. It was bad. Real bad. A fuel tanker had jackknifed it across all northbound lanes, probably when the driver tried to avoid something. Behind it was a pile-up of maybe 30 vehicles. Cars crushed under the trailer, an RV flipped on its side, a school bus accordioned against the concrete median barrier. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the people walking around in the wreckage, moving wrong, walking too stiff like their joints didn't bend right, and when they turned their heads, they turned too far, past where necks should turn. Breaker 19. This is Roadkill looking for any driver with eyes on the accident scene. Roadkill. I knew that handle. Jimmy Kowalski drove for a flatbed outfit out of Norfolk. Good driver, not the type to panic. This is Diesel Dog, Jimmy. I got eyes on it. What are you seeing? Same as you, I bet. People moving around up there. but they ain't moving right. And that smell, you catching that smell? I was sweet and rotten, like fruit left in the sun too long, but with an edge that reminded me of the chemicals they used to preserve specimens in my high school biology class. It was getting stronger. Jimmy, where are you positioned? Maybe half-mile back from the wreck, stuck between a bunch of four-wheelers. Listen, Diesel Dog, I think something's wrong with the people who got out to help. I saw maybe a dozen folks leave their cars when this first happened, went up to see if anyone needed assistance. That was 4 hours ago. They still up there? Yeah, but they ain't helping anybody. They're just walking around. And the way they walk, it ain't natural. Like they forgot how. Another voice cut in, "This is vehicle registration Charlie 83. All passengers are healthy and complying with quarantine procedures. No assistance required." Jimmy's voice came back, lower now. "That was Mrs. Kowalski from the blue Corolla, the one who went up to help earlier. But that ain't how my wife talks, Diesel Dog. That ain't how anybody talks." The pieces were starting to fit together in a way I didn't like. Chemical leak down in Charleston. Emergency evacuation. Traffic jam that trapped us between military roadblocks. And now something in the wreckage that was changing people, making them report in like radio operators. My daughter was 2 miles ahead, closer to whatever was spreading from that accident scene. I keyed the CB, "Jimmy, I'm gonna try to reach my daughter. She's up ahead with some neighbors. Haven't heard from her in over an hour." "Copy that. Be careful, Diesel Dog. Whatever's happening up there, it ain't natural." I switched to channel 19, the main trucker frequency, then to channel 9 for emergencies. Nothing but static and those flat, mechanical status reports. Vehicle Alpha 47 reporting no incidents. Bravo 12 confirms situation stable. Then I tried the family radio frequency Sarah and I used when we went camping. She had a little handheld Motorola radio in her backpack, something we'd bought at Bass Pro Shop last summer. "Little Bird, this is Big Truck on Family Channel. If you can hear this, please respond." Static. Then, faint, "Dad." "Thank God. Sarah, are you okay? Where are you?" I'm in the Henderson's truck. "But Dad, something's wrong. Mr. and Mrs. Henderson went to help some people a couple hours ago. They came back, but they're different. They keep saying everything's normal, but they won't look at me." "Where are they now?" "They got out again. They said they needed to check on other vehicles. But Dad, they're walking weird, like robots or something." My blood went cold. "Sarah, listen to me very carefully. Are you alone in the truck?" "Yes, I locked the doors after they left." "Good girl. Now I want you to stay in that truck no matter what. If anyone tries to get you out, even if they look like the Hendersons, you don't open that door. You understand?" "Dad, you're scaring me." "I know, honey, but I need you to stay scared right now. Scared will keep you alive. Can you see me from where you are?" "I think so. Are you the big truck with the chrome stacks?" I looked through my binoculars. 2 miles ahead, I could see the Henderson's black Suburban parked in the right lane. No movement inside that I could detect. "That's me, kiddo. I'm coming to get you." "How? There's no room to drive." She was right. The vehicles were packed so tight you couldn't fit a motorcycle between them, let alone an 18-wheeler. But I had something most of these people didn't: 400 horsepower, 18 gears, and a gross vehicle weight rating of 80,000 pounds. I fired up the Peterbilt and put her in low gear. "Sarah, when you see me start moving, I want you to get ready. When I get close, you run to my truck as fast as you can. Don't stop for anything, don't look back. Just run." "Dad, what about the other people?" I looked through the binoculars again. Between me and Sarah's position, I could see dozens of people walking around between the vehicles. moving with that same unnatural stiffness Jimmy had described. All of them heading slowly but steadily toward the vehicles that still had people inside. "The other people are already gone, honey." I released the air brakes and started forward, nudging the Honda Civic in front of me. The driver, the same guy who'd asked me about the CB, was sitting behind the wheel with his back perfectly straight, staring ahead. He didn't react when my bumper touched his rear end. The CB squawked, "Vehicle Delta 74 reporting minor contact. Situation remains stable. No assistance required." That was the Honda driver. Same flat, mechanical tone as all the others. I gave him a little more throttle and pushed his car sideways into the left lane. The metal scraped against concrete, but he didn't react. Just kept staring straight ahead, hands at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel. Time to clear a path to my daughter. Pushing cars out of the way with an 18-wheeler sounds easier than it is. You can't just ram them at highway speed. That'll get you a jackknifed trailer and a dead engine. You have to take it slow, use your weight and torque to nudge them aside like a slow-motion bowling ball. The problem was every car I moved had people in it. People who didn't react when I pushed their vehicles into guardrails, median barriers, or other cars. They just sat there, hands on the steering wheels, staring straight ahead like mannequins. Vehicle Tango 91 reporting minor displacement. Situation remains stable. Bravo 44 confirms impact. No assistance required. The CB was full of those status reports now. Dozens of vehicles checking in with the same lifeless tone. But between the automatic responses, I was starting to hear something else. Breathing. Heavy, labored breathing like someone running a marathon. "Sarah, you still with me?" "I'm here, Dad. I can see you pushing cars. Are you really going to drive through all of them?" "That's the plan, kiddo." Through my windshield, I could see people walking between the vehicles ahead. Dozens of them. Men in business suits, women in evacuation clothes, kids in school uniforms, all moving with that same mechanical gait. Some were carrying things, car keys, cell phones, purses, but they weren't using any of it. Just walking like they were following invisible instructions. One of them noticed my truck and turned to look at me. Middle-aged guy in a Hampton University t-shirt, probably a college professor heading north from the evacuation zone. His head rotated toward me in a smooth, continuous motion that went about 30 degrees past where a normal neck should stop. His eyes were completely white. No iris, no pupil. Just cloudy white, like milk. He opened his mouth and spoke, but it wasn't words. It was that breathing sound I'd been hearing on the CB, amplified and distorted. Other people around him started making the same sound, and soon there were dozens of them breathing in unison, creating a horrible chorus that echoed off the concrete barriers. "Dad, what's that sound?" "Don't worry about it, honey. Just keep your doors locked." I downshifted and gave the truck more throttle, pushing a line of cars aside like dominoes. The people walking between vehicles didn't try to avoid my rig. Some of them got knocked down when I moved the cars, but they just stood back up and continued walking. One woman got caught between my bumper and a Camry. I heard bones crack, but she kept trying to walk even with her legs bent at impossible angles. The CB crackled with more status reports, but now they were mixed with that breathing sound, getting louder and more synchronized. It was coming from all around me now, from every vehicle I passed. "Diesel dog, this is roadkill. You copy," Jimmy Kowalski's voice, but strained now, scared. "I'm here, Jimmy. What's your status?" "Not good, buddy. They got my wife. She went out to help someone maybe an hour ago, came back different. Now she's trying to get me to open the door, but she ain't talking right. She keeps saying, 'Jimmy, everything is normal. Please exit the vehicle for processing.'" Processing. That was a new word. "Where are you, Jimmy?" "Maybe quarter-mile behind you. I can see your truck pushing cars around. Listen, whatever you're doing, do it fast. These things, they're organized. They're working together, trying to get people out of their vehicles. And once they get you out, the transmission cut to static, then silence. Through my windshield, I could see I was maybe half a mile from Sarah's position now. The Henderson Suburban was still there, and I could see a small figure moving inside, my daughter, getting ready to run. But between me and her, the crowd of walking people had gotten thicker. They were forming lines, creating barriers across the highway, organized like Jimmy said, and they were all turned toward my truck now, watching me with those cloudy white eyes. I reached for my CB handset. Sarah, in about 5 minutes, I'm going to be close enough for you to run to me. But there are a lot of people between us, and they're not normal people anymore. You ready for this? I think so. Her voice was shaking, but she sounded determined. Amanda's daughter, no doubt about it. When I give the signal, you get out and run straight to my truck. Don't look at the other people, don't stop if they talk to you. Just run. I'll have the passenger door open. Okay, Dad. I put the truck in gear and started forward, pushing through a cluster of abandoned vehicles. The people ahead of me, maybe 50 of them now, didn't move aside. They just stood there, breathing in that synchronized rhythm, watching my truck approach. At the last second, I laid on the horn, the full-air horn, loud enough to wake the dead, and floored it. The crowd scattered, not from fear but with mechanical precision, stepping aside just far enough to avoid being run down. But as soon as I passed, they closed ranks behind me, cutting off my retreat. I was committed now. Forward was the only option. Sarah, get ready. 30 seconds. Through my passenger window, I could see the Hendersons walking between cars about 100 yards away. They moved with the same stiff gait as the others, but when they saw my truck, they changed direction and started walking toward the Suburban. Toward Sarah. Dad, Mr. and Mrs. Henderson are coming back. Ignore them. Get ready to run. I pulled alongside the Suburban and hit the air brakes. The truck stopped with a hiss of compressed air, and I reached across to unlock the passenger door. Now, Sarah, run. The Suburban's door flew open and Sarah bolted toward my truck. She was fast, track team at Norfolk Academy, but the Hendersons were faster than they should have been. Mrs. Henderson was maybe 10 feet behind her when Sarah grabbed my truck's door handle. Climb up. Hurry. Sarah hauled herself up into the cab just as Mrs. Henderson reached the truck. The woman who used to bake cookies for school fundraisers looked up at us with those cloudy white eyes and spoke in a voice flat as concrete. Sarah Henderson, please exit the vehicle for processing. Your guardian status has been updated. That's not my name. Sarah slammed the passenger door. My name is Sarah Cole. But Mrs. Henderson just kept talking. Sarah Henderson, please exit the vehicle for processing. Your guardian status has been updated. I put the truck in gear and started forward, leaving the woman standing on the asphalt, still repeating her request to no one. Dad, what happened to them? What's happening to everyone? I looked in my mirrors. Behind us, the crowd was following my truck, walking with that mechanical precision. Ahead, I could see more of them emerging from vehicles, all converging on our position. I don't know, honey, but we're getting out of here. The CB crackled. Vehicle Delta 749, you are leaving your designated quarantine area. Please return to your assigned position for processing. That was my truck's registration. Somehow, they knew exactly which vehicle I was. Dad, look. Through the windshield, I could see the source of the black smoke. The jackknifed tanker was maybe half a mile ahead, and the scene around it was worse than I'd imagined. The pileup stretched across all lanes, with vehicles stacked 3 deep in some places. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the people walking around the wreckage. Hundreds of them, all moving with that same mechanical gait, all with the same cloudy white eyes. And they were working together, systematically going from vehicle to vehicle, opening doors, helping people out, processing them. Sarah, I need you to listen carefully. We're going to have to go through that wreck up ahead. It's going to be rough, and there are going to be a lot of those people around. Whatever happens, don't look at them directly and don't listen if they talk to you. Just hold on tight. What if we can't get through? I looked at my fuel gauge, still over half a tank. Looked at the odometer. This old Peterbilt had 800,000 miles on her and was still running strong. Looked at my daughter, scared but determined, ready to fight for her life. We'll get through, kiddo. We'll get through. I downshifted into low gear and aimed for the gap between the overturned school bus and the jackknifed trailer. Time to see what this old truck could do. The sound of crushing metal filled the cab as I drove my 18-wheeler into the wreckage. Cars folded like accordion frames under the truck's weight, their windows exploding in showers of safety glass. The steering wheel bucked in my hands as we climbed over a flattened sedan, the truck tilting at angles that made Sarah grab the door handle. "Hold on," I shouted over the noise of scraping metal and straining diesel engine. We were maybe 50 yards into the wreck when they started climbing onto the truck. The first one appeared at Sarah's window, a teenage boy in a Virginia Tech hoodie, moving with that same mechanical precision as the others. His cloudy white eyes fixed on my daughter as he pressed his face against the glass. "Sarah Cole, please exit the vehicle for processing. Your status requires updating." "Don't look at him," I warned. "Keep your eyes on me." But more were coming. I could hear them clambering up the sides of the trailer, their footsteps hollow on the aluminum. In my side mirror, I saw an elderly woman in a floral dress climbing up my fuel tank, moving with impossible agility for someone her age. The CB was going crazy now. "Vehicle Delta 749, you are in violation of quarantine protocols. Stop immediately for processing." The voice was different now. Not the flat mechanical tone of the infected people, but something else. Something that sounded almost electronic. "Processing, processing, processing." Sarah was rocking back and forth in her seat. What does that even mean? I had a pretty good idea, and it wasn't something I wanted to share with my 18-year-old daughter. Whatever had leaked or escaped or been released down in Charleston wasn't just making people sick. It was changing them, turning them into something else. And that something else wanted more converts. The truck lurched as we rolled over the crushed remains of a minivan. Through the windshield, I could see the source of the infection now, the jackknifed tanker truck, but it wasn't carrying gasoline or diesel. The trailer had split open, revealing something that looked like a laboratory. Broken glass containers, twisted metal equipment, and in the center, a sphere about the size of a basketball that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "Dad, look at the tanker." "I see it." The sphere was pulsing, sending out waves of something invisible that made the air shimmer. Every pulse seemed to coordinate the movements of the infected people around the wreck. They moved in patterns like parts of a single organism. That's what's controlling them, I realized. That thing in the trailer. Bang, bang, bang. Someone was hammering on the driver's side window. A middle-aged man in a business suit, his tie still perfectly knotted despite the fact that his skull was caved in on one side. He must have been in the original pile-up, killed on impact, but somehow he was still walking around. "Evan Cole, please exit the vehicle for processing. Your daughter requires status updating." He knew my name. He knew Sarah's name. "How does he know who we are?" Sarah whispered. I didn't answer because I was too busy trying not to panic. The infected people weren't just mindless zombies. They were connected, sharing information somehow, and they wanted us for something specific. The truck was climbing over larger debris now, an overturned RV, the remains of what looked like a government sedan with federal license plates. In the distance, maybe a mile ahead, I could see clear road. But between us and freedom were hundreds of the infected, all converging on our position. "Dad, they're getting on the roof." I could hear them up there, walking around on the trailer roof. Dozen of footsteps, all moving in the same rhythm. Some of them were pounding on the sleeper cab, trying to find a way in. The CB crackled, "Evan Cole, you are endangering your daughter's safety. Stop the vehicle immediately for emergency processing." Emergency processing. That sounded even worse than regular processing. I reached for the CB handset. "This is Diesel Dog to any truckers still out there. If anybody's listening, stay in your trucks and keep moving north. Don't let them process you." Static. Then, "Diesel Dog, this is roadkill." Jimmy's voice, but different now. Flat. Mechanical. "Please return to quarantine area for processing. Your friend Jimmy is fine now. Everything is normal." They'd gotten Jimmy. Sarah was crying now, quiet tears running down her cheeks as she watched the infected people swarming over our truck. "Dad, are we going to die?" "Not today, kiddo." I reached under my seat and pulled out something I'd hoped I'd never need to use, a Mossberg 512 gauge shotgun. 5 shells in the tube, 1 in the chamber. Truckers weren't supposed to carry firearms, but 22 years of driving through some rough areas had taught me that sometimes the rules didn't matter. "Sarah, I need you to take the wheel." "What? Dad, I don't know how to drive a truck." "You don't need to drive it, just keep it going straight. Can you do that?" She nodded and slid over as I moved toward the passenger door. Through the windshield, I could see we were maybe 200 yards from clear road, but there was a wall of infected people blocking our path. They were standing shoulder to shoulder across all lanes, breathing in that synchronized rhythm. I opened the passenger door and stepped out onto the running board, shotgun in hand. The infected people on the truck sides reached for me immediately, but they moved with that same mechanical precision, predictable like robots following program movements. The first shot took the head off the college kid at Sarah's window. The second scattered the elderly woman climbing up the fuel tank. The third, fourth, and fifth cleared the people trying to climb into the cab. But for every one I dropped, 2 more took their place. "Sarah, more throttle. We need to punch through." The truck surged forward, climbing over the barricade of infected people. I could feel bodies crushing under the wheels, but more kept coming. They weren't afraid of the truck, weren't afraid of the shotgun. They just kept walking toward us with that mechanical determination. I was reaching for more shells when I heard Sarah scream. Looking through the passenger window, I saw one of them had made it into the cab, a young woman in hospital scrubs, probably a nurse from one of the Norfolk hospitals. She was reaching for Sarah with bloody hands, speaking in that flat, mechanical voice. "Sarah Cole, please remain calm during processing. You will not be harmed." I couldn't get a clear shot without hitting my daughter, but Sarah wasn't helpless. She grabbed the tire iron from behind the seat, something I taught her to do when she was 16, and swung it at the woman's head. The impact should have knocked the nurse unconscious, but she just turned towards Sarah with those cloudy white eyes and kept talking. "Please do not resist processing. Resistance will be noted in your file." That's when Sarah did something that made me proud and terrified at the same time. She grabbed the truck's gear shifter and yanked it into neutral, then pulled the air brake handle. The truck stopped hard, and the sudden deceleration sent the infected nurse flying forward into the dashboard. Sarah slammed the door and locked it. "Drive, Dad, drive." I pumped new shells into the shotgun and cleared the infected people off our running boards. Sarah got the truck back in gear, and we rolled forward through the last of the wreckage. Clear road stretched ahead of us, empty asphalt running north toward Richmond. In my mirrors, I could see the infected people standing at the edge of the wreck zone, not pursuing us. They just watched as we drove away, their cloudy white eyes tracking our movement until we disappeared over a hill. The CB was silent now except for static. "Are we safe?" Sarah asked. I looked at the fuel gauge, quarter tank left. Looked at the road ahead, maybe 50 miles to the Richmond city limits, where hopefully we'd find authorities who weren't infected. Looked at my daughter, shaken but alive, still holding that tire iron like she was ready to use it again. We're alive, kiddo. That's what matters. But as we drove north on the empty interstate, I couldn't shake the feeling that we hadn't escaped anything. We just delayed the inevitable. Whatever had been in that tanker, whatever was controlling those people, it was spreading. And eventually, it would spread far enough to find us again. The last thing I heard on the CB before Sarah turned it off was a voice I didn't recognize, speaking in that same flat, mechanical tone. Processing complete on Interstate 95 quarantine zone. Initiating secondary protocols. Expanding operational area to include Interstate 64, Interstate 85, and Route 460. All personnel report to new processing centers. We'd won this battle, but the war was just beginning. We made it to Richmond running on fumes and adrenaline. The Peterbilt's diesel engine coughed twice before settling into a steady idle as I pulled into the way station at mile marker 84. State police were everywhere, real ones, not the infected kind. They had roadblocks set up, but these were different from the ones that had trapped us. These were screening checkpoints with medical personnel in hazmat suits checking every vehicle that came through. Dad, look. Sarah pointed to a sign posted at the checkpoint. Survivors only beyond this point. All personnel subject to medical screening. Survivors. That's what we were now. A Virginia state trooper approached my truck, staying well back until the medical team could clear us. Through his face shield, I could see exhaustion that matched my own. Sir, I need you and your passenger to remain in your vehicle while we conduct a preliminary screening. Where are you coming from? Interstate 95, mile marker 135, the quarantine zone. His eyes widened. You came out of the infected area? We drove through it. I looked back at the empty highway stretching south. There's nobody else coming. The medical screening took 2 hours. Blood tests, eye exams, cognitive assessments. They were looking for signs of infection, but what they really wanted to know was how we'd survived when thousands of others hadn't. I told them about the tanker truck, the sphere that seemed to control the infected people, the way they moved with mechanical precision. Sarah described the synchronized breathing, the flat voices, the way they seemed to share information. We need to debrief you both, the lead medical officer said. Her name tag read Dr. Cole CDC. What you've seen could be crucial to understanding how this infection spreads. What is it? Sarah asked. What was that thing in the tanker? Dr. Cole glanced at the state trooper, then back at us. We're not entirely sure. The transport was supposed to be carrying biocontainment equipment from the CDC lab in Atlanta to a facility in Baltimore. But according to the shipping manifest, it should have been empty. It wasn't empty, I said. There was something in there that looked like a black sphere, about the size of a basketball. And it was controlling people? Not controlling, more like coordinating. They all moved together, breathed together, like parts of the same organism. Dr. Cole made notes on a tablet. We've had reports of similar behavior from the few survivors who made it out of the Charleston area. Mass coordination, shared information processing. It's unlike anything in the medical literature. She paused, looking at something on her tablet. The transport manifest shows the truck was carrying experimental specimens from a joint CDC Defense Department research project. Something called Neural Network Integration Studies. What's that mean in English? I asked. We're not sure yet, but based on your description and what we've seen elsewhere, it appears the specimens were designed to create networked consciousness in biological systems, essentially turning individual minds into nodes in a larger network. Like a hive mind, Sarah said. Something like that. The good news is the effect appears to be range limited. Once you got far enough from the source, you were safe. The bad news, which she didn't say but I could see in her expression, was that the range was expanding. They set us up in a FEMA trailer at the Richmond Emergency Operations Center, 2 cots, a hot plate, and a chemical toilet that reminded me of the worst truck stop restrooms I'd ever used. But it was clean, it was safe, and most importantly, it was far enough from Interstate 95 that we could sleep without hearing that synchronized breathing. Sarah crashed hard. 18 hours of sleep that had me checking her pulse every few hours to make sure she was still alive and not processed. When she finally woke up, the first thing she asked was, "Dad, are we going home?" Home was Norfolk, maybe 40 miles from the quarantine zone. According to the news reports, the infection had spread to cover most of southeastern Virginia. Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, all under mandatory evacuation orders. Home's gone, kiddo, but we're alive and we're together. That's what your mom would have cared about. She cried then, finally letting out everything she'd been holding in during our escape. I held her while she sobbed. This tough kid who'd swung a tire iron at an infected person and helped drive an 18-wheeler through a pile of crushed cars. She was still my little girl, even after everything. 3 days later, Dr. Cole came to our trailer with news. We've established a perimeter around the affected area. The infection appears to be contained, but we're not taking any chances. The entire I-95 corridor from Richmond to the North Carolina border is under indefinite quarantine. What about the people still trapped in there? Her expression told me everything I needed to know. We're doing everything we can. That was government speak for, "They're all dead," but we can't say that officially. A week after that, they offered me a job. "We need experienced drivers who understand the infected behavior patterns," the recruiter said. "Transport operations, supply runs to the perimeter checkpoints. The pay is good, and you'd be helping contain this thing." I almost said yes. The money would help Sarah and me start over somewhere new. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw those cloudy white eyes staring at me, heard that synchronized breathing, felt those hands trying to drag me out of my truck for processing. "Thanks, but no thanks," I told the recruiter. "We're heading west, far west." Sarah and I bought a used RV with the insurance money from my destroyed truck, a 2015 Winnebago that handled nothing like a Peterbilt, but got us where we needed to go. We drove to Montana, where Sarah enrolled in high school under a new name and I got work at a truck stop near Billings. Sometimes, late at night when the CB radio picked up long-distance skip signals, I'd hear voices with that flat, mechanical tone. "All units report status. Processing continues on schedule." The infection wasn't contained. It was spreading slowly but steadily, using the interstate highway system like arteries in a body. But that was someone else's problem now. Sarah and I had escaped the freeway siege and we weren't going back. We'd found our mile marker zero, the place where our old lives ended and our new ones began. Every morning, I watched Sarah catch the school bus, this resilient kid who survived something that killed thousands of others. She's got her mother's smile and her father's stubborn streak, and she knows how to swing a tire iron when things get rough. That's enough. That's everything. The CB in our RV stays turned off now, and we keep our gas tank full and our go bags packed, just in case the infection decides to follow I-94 west. Because I learned something important during those hours trapped on Interstate 95. Sometimes the only way to win is to keep driving, no matter what's chasing you. And sometimes, when you're a trucker with a daughter to protect, running away isn't cowardice. It's the smartest thing you can do.